What's going on, y'all? Machiavelli Mills TV. Y'all hit that like button and hit the subscribe button. I was sitting here thinking to myself, when I think about the rise of these YouTube channels who spew anti-black rhetoric, right? And these YouTubers happen to be black a lot, right? I'm thinking about channels like the Cartier family, channels like Aquarius Wave, channels like the Hodge twins, who really just got their wake-up call recently. I think about channels like Officer Tatum, Tyrone Magnus, Stevie Knight, Candace Owens, all of these individuals. I say, man, these channels really exist because these black folks have low racial self-esteem. They have low racial self-esteem, for real. And as black folks in this world, it's very important that we have high racial self-esteem, right? And black people having high racial self-esteem is not about hating any other group of people. It's not about despising folks that's outside of your ethnicity. It's not about even thinking you're better than the next person because of your ethnicity, because of our ethnicity, right? It's really about loving black people wholeheartedly, right? Being compassionate and empathetic towards black folks and towards the black struggle. Having high racial self-esteem is about really, really understanding the plight of black folks, especially when you black American. Understanding the plight of black folks throughout the diaspora, but for sure. But some of them individuals I name, definitely black American, and they talk about racism in America as if it's a figment of black folks' imagination, right? And so if they had high racial self-esteem, these men and women would understand the plight of black American folks here in this country. And not just understand it, they would voice the plight of black American folks in rooms where it's shunned, in rooms where black people are spoken about in a dismissive and minuscule manner, as if we're next to nothing, right? If the individuals that I named in the beginning of this video, if they had high racial self-esteem, they wouldn't parrot white supremacist talking points on their YouTube channel. They would not. They would not, again, spew anti-black rhetoric and throw black people under the bus in order to eat butter biscuits from people who hate black folks. They would not, try to railroad us at every turn in order to get pats on the head, attaboys, and pats on the back from people who look at us like spit on the ground. All right? They wouldn't do that if they had high racial self-esteem. But that's a problem that we have within some people in our community. And I want to rectify that shit. I know I'm not going to reach everybody, but there are certain conversations that need to be had, not just coming from elder black folks, but from younger black people. I'm 32 years old, So I feel like sometimes some of my messaging can reach the young youth, the teenagers, right? It can reach the people in their 20s and 30s. It can reach the teenagers before they start falling into the traps that the Cartier family and Tyrone Magnus set for them to make them think they have to go down that road. And then my commentary can hopefully reform some brothers and sisters, hopefully, who have gone astray and are a disgrace to black folks, right? Having high racial self-esteem is about loving who you are, loving being black, without the urge to want to label yourself as something else. What do I mean by that? If you have high racial self-esteem, you're not going to try to cling on to that 5% Cuban you might be, 3% European you might be, with any form of European, that 4% Spaniard blood in you. You're proud to be black without trying to label yourself as something else or something other, right? Having high racial self-esteem, if you have high racial self-esteem, you won't assimilate to representative politics. What do I mean by that? Channels like the Cartier family, Officer Tatum, the Hodge twins, they push this narrative of black fatigue. This narrative that because there's some people in the black community that exhibit degeneracy. They, they spew these white supremacist talking points as if black people are inherently more criminal than other groups of people. If you have high racial self-esteem, you won't fall into this bullshit that, oh, this black man or black woman who happens to be a criminal, they're ruining my chances. In corporate America, they're ruining my chances. They're ruining things for me amongst my white friend group or my white colleagues in corporate America because they're looking at me as something different. So you want to separate yourself. I'm not like the rest of those blacks. I'm something different. That bullshit. I have black fatigue too as a black man. That old bootlicking ideology, that bootlicking rhetoric. I have black supremacy too, and I'm a black man. That I'm sick of these black people who always want to be criminals too. They only want to be criminals. They only want to be criminals. That shit is not going to get you a seat at the table. They're not going to respect you. They're going to look at you as a token, and tokens get spent over and over. They don't get saved. They don't get put on. They don't get put on pedestals. They don't get put on display as rewards. They get put on display as laughing stocks, and they get spent. They get used to say, tokens get used by anti-black, white supremacists and other anti-black racists. Tokens get spent in order to say, hey, I'm not racist. This black man or this black woman feels the same exact way that I feel. So I can't be racist if these black people also don't like black people and also look at black people as degenerates. That type of thing, right? It's important for us to have high racial self-esteem out here, man. Like, having high racial self-esteem will not allow a black person to be in a relationship with a partner who is racially abusive and they insult people based upon your ethnicity. You wouldn't be with a person who insults you based upon your ethnicity. And you wouldn't be with a person whose family does the same thing if you have high racial self-esteem. You don't need to be validated under the white gaze, to feel good. Under white gaze to feel good, And I want black people to understand the need to be validated under white gaze makes our people susceptible to fascism. It really does. Because I stuttered over that. The need to be validated under the white gaze makes our people susceptible to fascism. 100%. I always think about this stuff. It's just it boggles my mind how individuals like the Cartier family think that, oh, these black people, these hood black people are making it hard for me. They're not making it easy for me to get loved on. To get loved on by white supremacists. They're not making it, they're making it harder for me to get accepted. Why the fuck would you want to be accepted by people who despise your own people? You want to be one of the good ones. As a black man, I could never allow myself to be one of the good ones. Seriously. And that is a lesson I always credit Sinbad for, like, really making that click for me at a young age. I was like in my early 20s, maybe 22, right? And I'm watching Sinbad on the Breakfast Club. I always bring up this point. Sinbad the comedian, right? Outstanding comedian. For those who don't know, Sinbad is a clean comic. And when he would do his comedy routines, he would say that a lot of, these people that book shows and stuff like that, a lot of the white folks would come up to him and say, hey, man, why can't they all be like you? Why can't they all be like you, man? Why can't the rest of them other black comics be clean and not curse like you? And Sinbad didn't look at that as a compliment. He knew that people were trying to use him to down other black people. They were trying to put him on a pedestal to shit on other black folks. And he said, I'm not having it. He said, no. You're not going to pay me as the good black man to belittle other black folks. I'm not going to do that. This comedy style is my style, but there's nothing wrong with what the other brothers and sisters are doing in comedy. That's their style. It's getting over. It's funny. Ain't nothing wrong with what they doing. I just have a different style, but you're not going to use me to belittle my people. And that's something when he said that, that's something that I took with me into corporate America when I got into corporate America at 24 years old. I remember being in corporate America with multiple degrees, with a master's degree at 24, and, you know, you working with some white coworkers, male coworkers, and they say, "Oh, Malcolm, you have your master's degree? You have your master's degree?" "Yeah, I do." "See, you did it." "Oh, don't start that bullshit." No, no, no. Because everybody didn't come from the same circumstances I came from, right? My parents weren't in the same household with each other, but they were extremely supportive of me, right? My mom, even though my dad wasn't in the house, he was very helpful to my mother, to where she didn't have to do certain things on her own. It was some people that some friends that I knew, their mother was doing things on their own. Sometimes, you know, their mother was just trying to make both of their parents trying to make ends meet so much, they really didn't even have the wherewithal to even like try to get, well, not even wherewithal, have really the time to put in to get the kids in our neighborhood into other schools. My mother and my father, they put me in a school, a black school still, in a magnet school outside of my area. And some black folks, some black kids like me, their mother was trying to make ends meet, their fathers was trying to make ends meet and was trying to just keep a roof over their head and trying to do all of that. It was sometimes they didn't even know how to go about doing these things, getting their kids into other schools that were outside of the district and all of that. I had to test to get into school, into the magnet school that I got into, right? So I from that grammar school, I went on to a great high school, Morgan Park High School, with a great curriculum. Every kid didn't have, and I had to test to get into that school, right? Because Morgan Park was selective enrollment at the time. And there are other kids, again, if their parents can't get them into schools outside of the neighborhood, they have to go to the neighborhood schools. Neighborhood schools don't have the resources. The teachers are underfunded. You know, their curriculum is not the same as some of these other schools that are better in the white communities. So they're going to high school sometimes ill-prepared due to lack of resources, lack of funding, etc., all of that. And then they're in a high school where they're not really prepared for high school. And when they get into these schools, the high schools that they're going to aren't properly preparing them for college. Morgan Park High School properly prepared me for college so that I didn't have the great struggles that some other people may have had in school, because I went to a school with a great curriculum. It was still a black school, a Chicago public school. Still, I went to Chicago public school, kindergarten through 8th grade. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm trying to display for that, I went on a long soliloquy to land my plane. What I'm saying is that everybody didn't come from the same circumstances I came from. So I'm never going to try to shit on other black people that didn't go and get a master's degree like me. I'm never going to look down upon them or look at them like they're next to nothing because they didn't go and get degrees and all of that. You know, some people were struggling from all type of stuff. I know some of my homies had drug addicted mothers addicted to crack cocaine. And we know who put that in our communities, right? We know who put that there. You know? So, or had parents, not even just mothers, both parents hooked on drugs. You know, stuff, and they had all different type of circumstances that they were facing. And sometimes, again, we just all poor trying to make ends meet. And when you poor, sometimes you're just trying to keep a roof over your head and trying to keep the lights on in the house. So even trying to get your kid in a better school, sometimes that falls on the back burner because you're just trying to make sure they're warm in the wintertime, in the harsh winters of Chicago, Illinois, the city I come from, right? And so me having high racial self-esteem would never allow a white woman or white man to paint me as the good black man, to denigrate my people, to trash and belittle my people, right? Me having high racial self-esteem will never let people, what about Chicago? Me, because Chicago is my hometown. I'm still on the south side of Chicago, Illinois. I went to college down south at Mississippi Valley State University for my bachelor's degree. I went to a HBCU for my bachelor's degree, went to a predominantly white institution, Arkansas State University, for my master's degree, and I returned back home to Chicago, right? But me having high racial self-esteem, I can never let you play that "what about Chicago" stuff to me. when I'm talking about a system of white supremacy, when I'm talking about police brutality, right? When I'm talking about all different type of systemic racism that goes on at different institutions in America. You know, I'm never going to let you do that to me. When you have high racial self-esteem, you're going to instill it into your children. I have a 14-year-old daughter. I have a 4-year-old son. They're going to be proud to be black, a black man and a black woman. They're going to be proud to be black. They're not going to look at it as just this curse that's just, you know, that they wish they could wash away. They're not going to look at other black people that may have had a rougher life than them as scum. They're not going to, you know, turn their noses up at other black folks that may have less than them. They're going to be empathetic and passionate to black and compassionate towards black folks and to the black struggle. They are not going to throw their own people under the bus for white validation. I refuse to raise children like that who think like that. My daughter now doesn't think like that. She's 14 years old. I'll be damned if I let her go out here thinking like that in this world. I'm never going to allow her to say, oh, those black people in the hood are messing things up for me. She's never going to walk around with that attitude, man. You know, but a lot of the black folks who regurgitate white supremacist talking points, they have low racial self-esteem. You know, they really do. Painting your own people as inherently degenerate, you know, for conservative white approval is disgusting. It's foul. You know, trying to, oh, I'm not black, I'm something else. That whole thing, nah, man, we're not doing that. Again, staying in a relationship with a partner who denigrates you because of your ethnicity, because you black, and a family denigrates you too. What? That's having low racial self-esteem. A lot of the individuals, all of the individuals that I named at the beginning of this video have low racial self-esteem. Somewhere, some way, they think being black is a negative thing. And they try to disassociate themselves at every turn. That's why the Cartier family keep on attaching themselves to that black fatigue narrative. One of the dudes, and again, it's disgusting because he happens to be a brother of Kappa Alpha Psi like me. I hope he no longer is a brother of Kappa Alpha Psi. Because when you know what the brothers of Kappa Alpha Psi that created this fraternity that we in, they created that fraternity in the backyard of the Ku Klux Klan in Indiana to help black folks, black men recognize they can be more than just laborers. They can be more than just labor workers. They can be dentists, doctors, lawyers, educators, entrepreneurs, journalists. They can be so many different things just more than just labor workers. The black men of Kappa Alpha Psi stood for the upliftment of black folks, not the derailment of black people. So when I see one of the brothers, the one with the glasses and a little twist in his head, saying that if you put 20 black men in a room, one of them is going to take another black man's life. One of them is going to kill somebody. Like stupid shit. Like, come on, man. You know, there's no way I could ever champion somebody that spews a narrative like that. There's no way I would even want to be hanging around people who think like this and talk like that. You can't come to the block party with me. You can't come to the fish fry with me. You can't come to the barbecue with me. Not the Labor Day barbecue, not the 4th of July barbecue, not the Juneteenth barbecue, especially the Juneteenth barbecue. Your ass is not invited at all, right? That's the one that matters, the Juneteenth barbecue. You can't come to the goddamn Memorial Day barbecue. You can't come to the family reunion. You can't come to the baby shower. You can't come to the trunk party that people have when they going off to college. You can't come to the damn, like, I don't know if I said the block party yet. You can't come to none of these functions and be around me at all. And you shouldn't want to be around other black folks. You shouldn't want to be around other black folks with high self-esteem, like me, high racial self-esteem. Should not want these type of black folks around them at all. They are a cancer. They are toxic. They are waste because they give credence. They give credence. They give validation to horrible narratives about our people. Horrible rhetoric about our folks, ideologies about our people. They give validation to that in order to think, and thinking they're going to sit at the table with these folks who hate black people. No, you're not. You're not welcome amongst them. They look at you and laugh behind your back. And if you had high racial self-esteem, you would know that. You would understand that. You wouldn't try to cozy up to them. But again, we have a problem in certain groups of our people that have this low racial self-esteem, and they think that they're being intelligent when they have this low racial self-esteem. They start quoting Thomas Sowell, the pseudo-intellectual. You know, they start, who again, makes it seem like racism today is a figment of black people's imagination, like we just pulling shit out of thin air and we're making it up. All because he wants to be cozied up with white folks who hate him and hate people that look like him. They only like him. They don't even like him. They pat him on the head and use him as an example to show that, hey, I'm not racist. Look at what this black man says. He says, you guys need jobs. Not you guys need jobs, because of course everybody needs to work. But he says you guys aren't educated enough. That's why you're living in poverty. He says you guys you lack education. That's why you're criminals. He says you guys are criminals because you have a terrible culture in your community, right? That's what Thomas Sowell says. The culture in your community is disgusting. That's why you're disgusting as black people. All that goofy shit, man. Excuse my cursing, excuse my profanity. I hope I don't get demonetized on YouTube, you know? But yeah, they cling to Thomas Sowell and they cling to every word he says because, again, he makes black folks look like we're vile and disgusting. You know? It's the same way, and they try to use it based upon, hey, you don't have enough education. And as I said in other videos, I have multiple degrees, right? In communication. Masters and bachelors. I worked as a government contractor, all of that. And it's still a struggle for me to find, and I was laid off due to the fact that the government chose to undergo budget cuts and they let the contractors go. It's still been a struggle for me to get anywhere close to the money I used to make. You know? And I got all these degrees, can't even get interviews. I'm well spoken, I'm articulate. I can interview with the best of them, all of that. And guess what? That still does not save me from being one paycheck away from everything being gone and me being out on the street, stuff like that, you know? So all of that, you lack education. They use people like Thomas Sowell as their what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, as a token for them. As another token. So yeah, it's so funny to me. Like I say, all of these black conservatives who spew anti-black rhetoric, they think they're being so intelligent when they make these talking points. They're really being stupid. They're being dumb. Because they don't realize they're being used. And they don't realize they're being used to throw their own people in a pile of dirt. They're stupid because they think that they're going to be able to cozy up to the same people who despise black folks. They're stupid because they're allowing, again, they don't even, they're allowing themselves to really dismiss the plight of our folks in order to be liked. It's mind-boggling. I'm stuttering and stammering over my talking points because I'm really going off top. I'm going off the top of my head. But yeah, it's important for black folks to have racial self-esteem. To have high racial self-esteem. Let me say that. You need to have high racial self-esteem. So that way you love your people. Again, you're compassionate. You have compassion for black folks. You have empathy for black folks. You understand the plight of black people. And you voice the plight of black folks around people who try to denigrate your people. You don't allow your people to be denigrated. You don't allow yourself to be used as a token. You don't allow yourself to ever parrot white supremacist talking points at all, right? Because there are a lot of people, and even, man, you know, I always bring this up, man. The Cosby Show was a beautiful show. Beautiful representation of black folks. A different world as well. But I remember watching Bill Cosby give that pound cake speech when I was a kid. And when he talked about, you know, black, and he was giving this speech in front of a group of white people. And he's talking about black folks naming their kids funny names and all of that. And Jamal, all these different, like crazy, and there ain't nothing wrong with no name Jamal either, because Malcolm Jamal Warner happens to be, that is the name of the man who played his son, Theo Huxtable, right? Well, he's talking about black folks naming all their kids all these names, and, you know, and sagging pants, and talking about, you know, making our culture just seem so degenerate in front of a group of white folks, and white folks applauding him while he's saying this. Me as a young boy, I maybe was 10 or 11 years old. Something in my spirit felt disturbed. It felt uncomfortable to even hear that coming from the great Bill Cosby, right? I'm like, yo, I couldn't believe this. I was hurt. I was a young boy, and I knew it wasn't right. I knew it wasn't right. When I heard Bill Cosby say, if a young kid stole a piece of cake, and he was really talking about black kids, black children, that's what he was talking about. If a young black kid stole a piece of cake and the police happened to shoot him, he shouldn't have been stealing some cake. And I'm like, Bill, you really think black kids should be shot because they stole a piece of cake? A piece of cake, brother? That ain't nothing to be shot over. It's nothing to be shot over. Maybe the kid happens to be hungry. You know, I'm black, I'll say hungry. Hungry. Or hungry, whatever you prefer. So from all the great work that Bill has displayed black folk, for all the great work that Bill Cosby has done as it pertains to black media, I was pissed off at that speech, because there are people, he gave validation to a lot of anti-black, let me say this, he gave, because that crowd was majority white, from what I remember. There was a lot of white folks in that crowd. And I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, y'all can correct me. But I remember a nice amount of white folks in that crowd, and they clapping it up while Bill Cosby talking about black folks being degenerate and having funny names and not being raised right, and, you know, we need to raise our kids better, and the pants sag and all. It was just like, what? It made me upset, you know, because I knew that he was giving validation to a lot of white supremacists and how they feel about black people. And a lot of the white supremacists looked at Bill Cosby as one of the good ones. One of the good ones, even if he didn't want to be looked at as that. They looked at him as one of the good ones, right? And then, you know, it's just a lot of stuff going through my mind right now, you know, but I remember seeing that, like, no, man, that ain't cool. You don't never give them validation to really dislike because they don't need validation to dislike your people, but you know what I mean? It does give them validation when another black man says things that they probably would say, you know? That's why when people talk about Candace Owens and they say, oh, you know, I saw a group of black folks trying to become Candace Owens fans. Hey, I'm becoming a fan of hers. Hey, man, she only wants to hold us accountable. She only wants to hold black people accountable. What's wrong with that? And yeah, she may say 3 or 4 things I agree with, but a broke clock is right twice a day, goddammit. So I'm not impressed, right? But when black folks say she only wants to hold us accountable, I ask them, hold us accountable in front of who? In front of who? Candace Owens, her audience is not made up of mainly black people. Her audience is made up of mostly white folks. Conservative, anti-black conservative white folks. Conservative white folks who hate black people. So what good is it that she gets to talk about our degeneracy and say, oh, they clapping it up. They clapping it up for her. That's right, Candace. Talk about these degenerate Negroes. What good is it of her? What good is it that she's holding black people accountable in front of a group of people who hate black people? Come on, fam. What good is it that she's doing that? Her audience is not mainly black at all. At all. I'm not going to let y'all even act like it is. She got an audience full of folks that can't stand black people. So her holding us accountable in front of them, what the fuck is that finna do? But make them hate us. Like, I mean, not make them hate us. They already hate us. Make them just feel like, hey, I can't be racist. Look at what Candace is saying. Come on, man. Use y'all brain. She's holding us accountable in front of people who hate black folks, who despise us, who look at us as next to nothing. She's holding us accountable. What? Them people that watch our show clap it up. They clap it up for her. That's right, Candace. Tell those Negroes they aren't nothing but scum at the bottom of their shoe. Tell those Negroes they are just nothing but degenerates. They will never be nothing but degenerates, and they need education. Tell those Negroes they are not educated. They're not educated. Tell them their culture is horrible, it's toxic, and they always call black culture toxic and horrible and disgusting. But these main people calling our culture disgusting and horrible want to emulate it. They want to dress like us, talk like us, walk like us, listen to black music that's created by black folks. Hip hop is a black art form created by black folks. Yeah, other people can participate, but it's a black music, a black art form. They want to sing R&B music and all of that. They want to be dressing and talking and walking like black folks, but then you hate black people at the same time. Make it make sense. Black folks, we all need to have high racial self-esteem so that we will never parrot white supremacist talking points and allow our people to be denigrated just because somebody is putting us up on a pedestal. You will never allow yourself to be a token if you have high racial self-esteem. Machiavelli Mills TV, I'm out, y'all. Peace.